in this investigation, let me kind of walk you through where I began, because I like to start at the beginning, and I like to show people sort of the development of the thesis. In other words, if I just jump to the end and tell you it's Saudi commandos and helicopters, you're like, what? How the hell do you get to that? From Steve, for a 64-year-old guy shooting from a window. You've got to build the case. You got to show people, how do you get to this? So I'm going to show you guys a couple of things that I put together literally in the last 6 days, 5 or 6 days, that kind of builds the case for more than one shooter. And that's where we're going. So the bottom line up front is there is ballistic and photographic evidence of more than one shooter. All right, that's what I'm going to be showing you. So that's the bottom line up front. Now, how do I make that case? How do I make the case? How do I come to a hypothesis that there's more than one shooter? I accumulate evidence. So let me show you guys some evidence to build that case. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a quick interview that a reporter from Fox did with somebody on the scene. So let me see how I share this. We're going to click with share my screen or presentation. All right, so this is an interview. The lady in the red dress is with Fox. The woman in the black Trump shirt, it says Trump girl, is about to recount her personal situation here. So this is an eyewitness account. Let's take a listen.
The fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in Water Tower. There was one by the fence.
And still, obviously, initial reports. But what we do know, according to the
fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in Water Tower. There was one by the fence.
And still, obviously, initial reports. But
the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in Water Tower. There was one by the fence.
Okay, so one by the water tower, one by the fence. That's what I heard, right? Now,
all right. Let me jump in here for a second. I believe I know where you're going, and I will just say, from my perspective, this is another place where the absence of briefings is glaring. There's a water tower. It's the highest position within shooting range of where President Trump was speaking. There are certain facts about it that we could absolutely be told. Was the water tower covered? If it was not covered, why not? If it was covered, in what way was it covered? Right? Those are basic facts of what took place. These are already matters of history, and there's no reason to hide them from us. And if the answer is there was nobody on that water tower and it was not being monitored, that raises an obvious question. Why not? So anyway, interesting that you have a witness here saying water tower.
right. So to me, when I see women in their 50s, 60s, 70s recounting something that just happened, it's hard for me to think that she's lying, right? I'm not going to say, well, she's making up a story. She's, why would I think that? Now, here's another eyewitness, and we're going to go from this eyewitness into, some more specific stuff. But I want to share with you these eyewitness accounts cause me, so this kind of kicks in conscious confirmation bias. Okay, what do I mean by that? When I hear 2 people, 3 people say that there's a shooter in the water tower, what am I going to go do? Look, what am I looking for?
Right.
So I go look at the water tower. That's confirmation bias. I'm looking at the water tower now. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't think it is confirmation bias. I think, when you have low quality evidence to begin with, and then you start to get a signal, a bunch of people think there was somebody in the water tower. Could well be that there's a perfectly innocent explanation for that. There could be a wall that reflects back sound that makes people who are standing in a particular place hear the shot as if it came from the water tower, and it didn't. In which case, I would expect something like, well, there was no shooter in the water tower because Agent Davis was on the water tower, and he reports blah, 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 right? In which case, oh, well, what did Agent Davis see? Could he see the shooter? Could he see, it would lead to an obvious set of evidence, and yet what we've got is, I dare you to say water tower, and we're not going to tell you what we thought about the water tower. So anyway, you want to play your second eyewitness?
Now, this is the second eyewitness. Then we're going to go into more of the ballistic evidence, but the eyewitnesses tend to point me in a certain direction. So if I had 3 eyewitnesses telling me the shots were coming from the ladies' room, I'd be looking for footage. Show me some footage that's got the ladies' room in the footage, right? That's what I want to see. I want to see what's going on there. So when I hear somebody say one shooter was over by the fence and the other was by the water tower, oh, okay, you got my attention. Let's listen to this next eyewitness and see what she has to say.
Sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed a gentleman in the water tower here.
What was that?
Sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed a gentleman in the water tower here.
Whoa, that's getting pretty specific. The sharpshooter shot to the left and killed the guy in the water tower.
Wow. That's pretty specific.
And it's not, she doesn't sound like somebody told her this secondhand, does it? Let's listen again.
Sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed a gentleman in the water tower here. Sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed a gentleman in the water tower here.
Now, she may be mistaken. Okay, so none of this to me is definitive. The whole point of using inductive reasoning, the whole Sir Francis Bacon method, keep gathering evidence. Keep gathering evidence. Hold off on coming to a conclusion until the evidence is so overwhelming that it's like Galileo, man. Galileo had the whole notebook, and he's like, just look through the telescope, bro. It's all here. It's all here. You don't have to. It's all here.
Well, there's a signature of it. If I can borrow from my own toolkit, if you are trying to figure out what the branching pattern, the evolutionary branching pattern is between a particular set of creatures, and you have not very much evidence, right? You have scant evidence. Well, the branching pattern, if you ask a computer to say, well, what's the simplest branching pattern between these 12 creatures, it keeps flipping back and forth. When you start adding more and more evidence, it stabilizes, because each new piece of evidence is very likely to tell you the same story that you've already heard, which is the true story. So you get this experience of like, well, a dozen things are possible on day 1, and by day 4, it's like only 3 things are possible.
That's exactly right.
And so anyway, I would say there's one other element here, though, that we have to be very cautious about. We have one of 2 things going on. Either you have a single shooter who is behaving in a cryptic way until he reveals himself by shooting at President Trump. Or you have a conspiracy in which more than one person is involved, which we don't yet know about. If it is the latter, then that thing has every reason to mislead us. And one thing it could do is it could seed the idea of water tower into the minds of people who would go looking for evidence to mislead, right? A misdirection.
And I'm used to this, by the way. So I'm used to this from the COVID investigation. There are, I don't like to use the air quotes in my hands, but there are investigative journalists that I believe are actually disinformation agents working for the GEC, the Global Engagement Center of the State Department. Their job is to sow discord. Their job is to metaphorically pee in the pool, so to speak. Their job is to take an aspect of the story that has truth to it, for example, like the Wuhan military games, and then add an aspect to it that the virus was brought to the games by a bicyclist. It's like, what? That has nothing to do with this. Right. So by ruining an aspect of the story with disinformation, now, like you said, anybody who mentions the water tower, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Anybody mentions the Wuhan military, and now you're a conspiracy theorist. Same thing. And I call that peeing in the pool. Are they trying to pee in the pool in the water tower? Sure they are. Why? Like you said, well, let's just see the footage of the Secret Service guys up there. They must be up there, right?
They're either there or they weren't. Which is it? Tell me which branch of that tree we are on. Were they up there?
Dude, I didn't start looking at the water tower until I heard the lady say it, right? It's not my idea. Right. I'm only following clues. That's what you're supposed to do. You get a clue. You talk to people, says, oh yeah, they shot the guy in the water tower. No, you're lying.